はい。皆さん何か質問があったらぜひ聞いてくださいね。So you can ask this in English or Japanese. はい。
こんにちは、先生。
こんにちは。
はい、私はアシミです。I had a question about, I'm not that good at Japanese yet. I've just entered second year, so I'll ask it in English. Regarding your research that you did in the Niigata prefecture, what are the complications that you faced while doing field work? Because you were obviously seen as a foreign citizen and you wanted to access something that is something that's not really accessible even to the Japanese citizens. So what were the difficulties and problems that you faced along the way? And how did you manage all that?
Right. So, Japanese universities and institutions are generally very appreciative of you if you are doing research in their literature or their history or anything. And I didn't really face much problems. I didn't face anything like they thinking of me as an outsider and what are you doing here sort of thing. In fact, quite the opposite, because in the book that I told you about, Koe Seppu, the author talks about how people from Edo, which is the old name of Tokyo, did not understand them. The tone of the book is that you don't know us, and yet you write poems about us. Okay, so even now the people there have this sentiment that these places with nice climate, they don't know about us and they just romanticize about us. And they were very happy that someone from outside Japan was doing research on them and research on a person whom they consider locally, everyone knows about Suzuki Bokushi. They all think about him as the voice of their region. But people in Tokyo don't know about that person much. So they were excited that through my research work, maybe a lot of people will get to know about Suzuki Bokushi. Okay, so since I am talking to you about him now, maybe you will get interested, or maybe you will Google him or something. Okay, so they see this as an opportunity. So they helped me a lot. There were people there was this one school teacher who took me in his car to all the places that was mentioned in the book. See, this place is that one, this is that place which is mentioned like this, and so on. And he didn't expect anything in return. He was just doing that because he was proud about his region and he wanted people to know about his region. Then there was this, in 2014, the Jaltai essay contest is there, right? And 2014 essay contest, I was in charge. And for that, I had to go to the Japanese school in Delhi. It's in Basant Kunj. I had to go there and talk to a sensei there because he was the judge. Then that sensei asked me what you were doing, and I said I'm doing research on this. And he said, "Wow, that's my hometown. That's literally I taught in the school on the same lane as where Suzuki Bokushi lived." And he said, "Wow!" I mean, he didn't expect that at all. He was very pleasantly surprised. And then he introduced me to some people there when I said that I'm going to go for this Japan Foundation Fellowship. And these people whom he introduced me to, they not only, they had by the way, that place is also a skiing town. Okay, a lot of people go there to ski. So there are a lot of hotels and lodges for that. So they kept me in those hotels free of cost, completely, okay? They would just not accept money. I would say that I will pay. I get enough scholarship to pay. They said, no, nothing doing, you are not going to pay a single penny. They would also take me around in their cars, wherever I wanted to go, wherever I needed to go, say the museum or the archive or the library, and they would take me everywhere. So that's the level of cooperation that I received. So if you ask me about challenges I faced, I would say that there were none, really.
Sensei, if I may change the topic a little bit,
Yes,
The
please.
work-life balance in Japan, as everyone knows, isn't the best, right?
Yes.
Why do you think foreigners still keep going to Japan, and do you think that that is going to change? I mean, I know it has changed since the past in a lot of offices, but I feel like there's still a huge number of foreigners who don't go to Japan just because of that very reason. Do you think?
That's true. That's true. That's true. Especially in corporate setups, the work-life balance is really, really poor. And as you said, things have started to change. You know, when I was in Waseda, I used to live with a flatmate, two flatmates actually. One was again from JNU. I don't know if you have heard of her. Her name is Supriya. She works as a reporter in Japan, by the way, and she writes for a news bureau called Kyodo News. And there was another guy who was again an Indian, and he was he's IT person. He works in an IT company, and through him, it was through him that I knew Japanese corporate sectors very closely. And whatever I know through him is that things have really started to change a lot in the last, say, 10 years or so. Okay, and nowadays, a lot of companies which used to function in the traditional way have now started to change. They, as you know, Japanese companies expect you to not take the leaves that you are entitled to, right? Although you are entitled to say 10 leaves, but you are expected to take none of them because you are expected to work. But nowadays there are a lot of companies which say that it is compulsory for you to take the leave. You have to take the leaves. And there are a lot of companies which are saying that you have to go back home after office timings. Whereas traditionally you were expected to stay back even after the timings got over, or at least till your bosses don't leave. You are not supposed to leave before your boss. But even though things have started to change, but a lot of that old thing still remains. Recently it became news in Japan where a man was, the superior, the boss, got very angry on a man because that person left the Zoom call before the boss. So that what used to happen in the physical space of the workplace, it has not now also translated into Zoom, where if your boss has not left yet, you are not supposed to leave. You wait for the boss to leave first, then you will leave. So still a lot of that old infamous Japanese work culture still remains, but things are changing. And nowadays there are a lot of foreign workers, and Japan also doesn't have a choice, by the way, because as you know, it's an aging population, it's a shrinking population, and they need workers from outside Japan. And of course, if you are getting workers from outside Japan, they are not going to do things the Japanese way, right? So the Japanese are also being forced to change their infamous work culture now. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, pretty much. But also the changes in the work culture, the companies that have adapted to this change, do you think the work culture in those companies and the work-life balance of their employees is just as good as any other countries? I'm not saying that India's work-life balance is amazing, but I mean, if I end up working in Japan, am I looking forward to a better work-life balance or a worse one? That is...
It really depends on the company.
Yes, of course, but if it's a company that has already started adapting to all of these changes, so is it...
Then I think it would be quite good, because the company that my flatmate used to work in, the work-life balance was really good. He would come back at 5 from office, then he would go to the gym and then come back, and he had he had the weekends off, and he could take all the leaves that he was entitled to. It was nice. So, but of course, it all depends on the company and all that.
Right, thank you.
I got to know from a friend in EFLU that you gave them an assignment to comment on the music video, the Curry Police, the controversial music video,
Yes.
Curry Police. So what
Yes.
made you give such an assignment? Like, it was so unconventional and something never heard of. Like, for me, we don't really confront Japanese people. So why did you give such an assignment?
Oh, it was something that I suddenly discovered one day on the internet, and I thought that, this is because this video came out, and then a lot of Indians reacted to it. And most of them, in fact, all of them were people who don't know Japanese or have no idea about Japanese culture and all that. So I thought, if Indians have to react to this video, it should be our students, not just EFLU students, but students who are doing Japanese anywhere in India, because they know what the Japanese think of Japanese people, what they think of Indian culture. Our students have an idea.
One question that it has been like more than 75 years after like the World War II has ended, and so basically China and mainly South Korea are like they are still seeking an apology from Japan, like for the war crimes that Japan did then when it was an imperial country. So why is this anger like still continuing that took place like such long ago? What's the reason behind it? Like we have seen other countries like colonized by Japan, like Indonesia and Philippines. So they show no animosity towards Japan today, or like even for example India and Britain, they have such friendly relations. But why are South Koreans like they feel such hatred towards Japanese? Why is it so?
Well, the Japanese colonialism, as you know, was quite brutal one, right? Compared to, say, I'm not saying the British were very good. The British were also very brutal, and but if you look at Japanese colonialism, it was a very short span of time, and within compared to say British or Portuguese or French imperialism, if you compared to that, Japanese imperialism was a very short amount of time, and within that short amount of time, they really committed a huge number of atrocities, right? So the impact, I think, was much more, and right from the Nanking massacres to whatever happened in Manchuria and also Korea. So I think that intensity was so much that the impact still is there till now. Korea, but they are all consuming each other's popular culture so much. They're watching each other's dramas, they're singing each other's songs. So that is also there. So we also need to remember that. So there is something that binds the East Asian countries together. But of course, there is history that you cannot forget. There's so much atrocities that were done that it's not easy to forget. So I wouldn't blame the Koreans or the Chinese